Angie?
Basting,
Here.
Bush,
Here.
Dolphin,
Yeah.
Kay, Kinch,
Here.
Stefas,
Here.
Stevenson.
Here.
All present. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll do the recognitions first. State track participants. Mitch, do you want to introduce them?
Do I?
Yeah. Perfect.
You gotta kind of excuse me, I had an eye exam today and dilation, so I might be. We have Nathan Eisenzimmer, Kevin Eisenzimmer, Sydney Staver, they were all participants at state track meet. It's one of our sports we co-op with Dodgeville, and we send quite a few kids over to participate, and it's been a great partnership, and we hope it continues to be a great partnership. And you can see the placings on the screen, and it was another successful year for our track members, so congratulations.
Yeah, we'd just like to add, these are our students here, but again, it's been a long-standing relationship with Dodge Point, and we're very appreciative of their opportunity for us to co-op. But Sydney, 12th place in the long jump, congratulations. Kyle, Nathan, Noah, and Josh made up the 10th place 4x200. We had Jalissa along with Kennedy and Brittany, and Sydney also placing 10th in the 4x400. Kyle, Josh, Jack, and Nathan again in the 8th place in the 4x400. And Janie, Sid, and Jalissa along with Marissa Parkin from Dodgeville placing 7th in the 4x200. So again, a really great representation up at the track. Beautiful facility, beautiful weekend. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it up there, but well done, ladies and gentlemen, on representing Mineral Point extremely well. So thank you. The board has a small token of appreciation, and I'd like to just shake your hand and say congratulations on a fantastic season. Come on over this way, and then we'll kind of scoot you around that way. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Great job. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Jumping jack.
Okay.
Congratulations.
All right, number 3 on the agenda is approval of minutes.
We got other recognitions before we leave staff recognitions.
Oh, okay.
There are some that were able to make it out tonight, some that have not, but I would like to just take a moment, and I'll be joined by some of our administrative team in just wishing well those that will not be returning that are known at this time. Tom Behrens joined us in August of 2014. He was a special education teacher for us here at the high school. Tom made some instant connections with staff and students. He is taking a position at the Mound School District. It's a similar position, but it's much closer to his home. We wish Tom the very best, and I know this is a good move for him personally and professionally. This was a tough shift for him as he really enjoyed our staff, but we'll miss Tom. I'm going to skip over Brad, and I'm going to just touch on Heather.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah. Is he here? Heather.
Heather wanted to be here, but she just had foot surgery.
Yeah. For those that follow her on Facebook, she's got foot up watching Netflix right now. But Heather, we wish her well. Nobody can speak to what Heather has been able to do as well as Brad is, so I'm going to turn this over in just a moment. But Heather was trained as a school counselor, and she has been looking a long time to get back into the school district, let alone school counseling. We were able to help her get one foot in the door and get her back into the school fold. after taking a break from teaching and doing what she loves. But ultimately, her passion lies with being a school counselor, and she found that position. We're very excited for her to get back into her field of expertise, and in some way, shape, or form, we hope our paths will cross with Heather. But Heather was the assistant directly to Brad, worked with him closely day in and day out. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
No, she was just super organized, very efficient, very effective in her position. The number one job of an administrative assistant is to try to make the principal look good, and she did that really well. Had everything done, once again, very efficient. I recognized that she wanted to get back into the classroom and wanted to help out in other ways. She, over the last 2 years, has been helping with our kindergarten win time, what I need time, and the teachers would provide assessments and they would kind of identify which students needed some extra help. She was one of the staff members that joined the kindergarten team to provide some assistance for them. That was just one opportunity for her to be back into the classroom. And I know if there were ever anything that came along in the classroom or with situations with student behavior, she was always an extra set of ears that I could pull into the office real quick with her counseling background, and she was just an asset for us. And we were even looking for ways to get her back into the classroom and do more counseling this year should she have not been offered a position like this. So congratulations to Heather.
Thank you. Two that are here, Erin Bales here, and Erin, if you just stand for just a moment, just to be recognized. She's one of our 2 speech and language pathologists here. Erin is full-time, Jennifer Dubois is part-time. Erin came in, it's been since the 2014 school year. This is a great opportunity for you as well to get back closer to home. So I've been able to work closely with Erin over the past year in some of our meetings and have seen her professionalism and expertise up close and personal, and it is second to none. You'll knock the socks off of everything in Belleville that they need, and we're just very appreciative that you took a chance on us as a new professional as well and came and lent your expertise here. And I've had a chance to actually shadow Jennifer this year in speech and language, and the work that you do day in and day out is one of those that goes often unrecognized, but is very important for those youngsters that are trying to get ahead with their speech and their language. And it's a very rewarding position, but it's also a very challenging position. But we thank you for spending some time with us here, and shortly we'll get a chance to thank you personally with the board. But thanks for joining us. And Mr. Broglie is here. And they came in at the same time, and they're departing at the same time. No coincidence there, but Brad has been here with us for 2 years. He is joining the Platteville School District as the Director of People Services. This is a fantastic career move for him professionally, as it allows him to oversee an entire district rather than a building, but it also allows him to be a little bit closer to family. And his students, or his kids, are students in the Platteville School District, and for him to be home and Dad to be there is something that really called to him personally, as well as the opportunity to grow professionally. So we wish him all the best. He's been a fantastic fit to our administrative team. We've had a lot of chuckles along the way, but we've learned a lot from each other, and all of us have grown to become a better team and a better school district because of Brad's leadership, and complemented us extremely well. Big shoes to fill, and we're going to miss him, but as he stated, I'm only 20 miles down the road, so we will be in touch with him, and he as well as us. Anything you'd like to share?
I'd just like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is, it's just been a great learning experience for me the last 2 years, and professionally, personally, it's just been awesome. So, and I am just 20 miles down the road, so let's stay in touch.
And Erin, I also want to give you an opportunity to just say anything if there was anything that you'd like to share.
Thank you as well for the opportunity, especially coming in as a new graduate, for taking a chance on me. And I've gained invaluable experience here, and a tough decision to leave. Certainly miss all the students and staff, but it's been a really great experience to be here, so thank you.
You're welcome. We thank both of you and the other 2 as well that weren't able to attend for your years of service here at Mineral Point Schools. We wish you nothing but the best personally and professionally. So if you didn't mind, we'd like to welcome you and wish you well.
approval of the minutes. Motion
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Larry. Any discussion?
Is that all the meetings or one of the meetings or what?
We have
The meetings.
Does it include all the meetings listed, Jeff? Yes. All right. And same with you, Larry? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Communications? Any board communications received? All right, citizen communication? Dr. Fox?
She'll be joining us later in the agenda.
I think you're, I'm on
Yep.
download for them.
Okay. Administrative business service, credit card statement of activity. Motion to approve credit card.
A couple of questions on those, not that it's relevant, just want to ask, what is the one Vicky Doll has yours?
Children's Hospital,
Yeah,
there's 3 of them for $100.
Children's Hospital.
Those are
Oh,
donations.
yeah, the All-Star Games.
all those are donations all the way down.
Right,
there?
but it was, you had to do it by credit card, but it comes out of a separate athletic department account.
But that's, all those are that.
Yes, yeah.
And that's when Brad had a plaque or whatever, for $5 something. Greenwood, Neiman,
That's the REI, that's Fontes and Pinnell. It's a assessment company that we use to assess reading abilities of kids grades K through 5 eventually. Right now it's K through 3. Actually, K we're using now, so first grade through third grade. We've expanded our set, and that is the company that'll help us determine a kid's reading level. So if they were to move into the district and we're trying to figure out what grade to place them in, we would use this screener to help us determine their reading level.
And if I may too, that's just something that, once again, kind of like Vicky's, is the district purchases it, but that's a Title I expenditure. The district will get reimbursed at $5,300, whatever it is. We
is
just-
that a yearly thing or a monthly?
That, one time, it should be one time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll do a roll call.
Oh, okay, Aaron, looks, what's these trips to Newark? I assume New Jersey.
That's for the teachers that were in the lottery that were awarded a spot in the Teachers College Institute for the Readers Writers Workshop.
So is that what the $900 for the web is too? Is that or is that something different? The top item, Teachers College web.
Yes, that is that, correct. There are 3 teachers that are attending, 2 first grade teachers and a kindergarten teacher. And you have 2 of the 3 registrations here. So the registration's there, and then the travel expenses.
That's not reimbursed, is it? Through the fund?
The school district is purchasing their registration and travel to and from.
It seems like we have a lot of this travel, and I wonder how much it actually enhances anything.
It's pretty unusual to have teachers travel by plane anywhere. I don't remember seeing that in ever.
Correct.
Have we done this before, Luke?
No, this is our first year of attending the Teachers College.
All right. You'll give us a report back on what we learned from.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is just on credit cards or the bills? Total?
Just the credit cards, I believe.
We need a motion.
We don't have a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the credit card statements.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Well, I think that something like that ought to be pre-approved, so.
All right, roll call?
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Kinch,
No.
Stevenson. Yes. Stefan.
Yes. We'll do the approval of bills payable. Do we have a motion for that?
I got a couple questions on it first.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jeff,
Second,
second by Larry. Or go ahead, Larry.
one we had $5,000 up for goats. Why would we pay for them?
I'm sorry, which vendor?
Vegetation Solutions. It says goats, maybe it wasn't because of it says.
What's the ones in the back here?
42, page 42.
Give me goats at this event.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we had talked about this at the past board meeting, the Oaks Savannah currently has about 90 goats that are out there that are using a natural way of trying to keep back the undesirable vegetation, specifically all of the things that are non-native to Wisconsin. They're chewing up and spitting out in many different ways. And that organic turnover is kind of taking care of the Oak Savannah where you used to do a burn. We're trying a different method or solution to keep back the non-native plants.
Are the goats, know which ones are native and which ones aren't?
They're very smart goats.
Maybe we should have them conduct a class.
Is it working?
They certainly have, you can tell where they're banging, where they're going. So it'll be interesting to continue to monitor this.
So is this a total bill or?
That is the total bill, yeah, and that's for roughly, it's almost like 2 weeks, or 2 months, like 9 weeks worth. Maybe you know, it's just not that long.
I think the goats are gone.
Okay. They started before school was out, and we kept rotating the pens over, and there's, like I said, probably 90 to 100 goats out there.
So the expense was a rental of the goat?
Yeah, I guess you could share that.
Okay.
Came out.
And the fencing that went along with it?
Yeah, that was all inclusive. I think they came in from the Muscadet, Riverdale area.
It's a business.
Bylaw 240. Well, pedometers, what do you have pedometers for?
Typically, pedometers are used to measure students' activity in physical education classes. Oftentimes, they show a baseline, and then we'll write their goals over the number of steps and or the amount of activity that a student shows or displays to the form of growth throughout a year's time.
How many did we get on that?
What's the vendor? I can pull the invoice.
Gopher Sports.
So that has 5 FitStep Pro pedometers and 1 Pro pedometer pack of 30. So there's probably, it looks like a classroom set of 30, and then 5 additional that are just in a different color. So I don't know if those would be for other students, but 30 in the Screamin', well, they're all Screamin' Orange. So it must be 35. They come in a pack of 30, and then that's what it is. So instead of buying 2 packs, not that 60 wasn't needed, they bought 1 pack of 30, which is a price break, and then 5 additional to make a full class set.
That high price? You didn't consider what you could
Unit price is $31.98
a piece.
a piece, correct?
These are also linked directly into a software package that FIAD teachers have, so student data is just dumped right into this online program and keeps track of the student activity.
What is the ultimate purpose of doing this?
It's basically showing kids that even though you're in FIAD, sometimes your participation level is a lot different. Whether you're, and the instructors will tell you too, the kids wearing the pedometers are certainly a lot more active because all of a sudden they feel like, here's a goal, I'm trying to reach this goal, and they're much more active and they can track their progress throughout the period and throughout a unit or 9 weeks as to how much more active they are.
I assume that wind chime was purchased for a gift or something, or?
What's the
Yeah,
vendor?
that was for Kylie Phil.
Okay.
Yep.
The Dodgeville School District look for special ed open enrollment. Is that some of our kids going over there?
Right, yep. You would probably see, this is the time of the year that we do the inter-fund transfers between schools for those kids coming
I
in.
think the whole year would.
Yeah.
So what we must have, like 4 or 5 kids?
Specifically the Dodgeville look.
Oh, we paid police department $37,500 for Bill Holloway.
I can speak to that after the Dodgeville invoice. Was that the additional, or no, it's not additional?
No, that's $288 or
I imagine it's probably just 4
Yeah,
kids.
I'm just trying to match the invoice with the actual expenditure. Two, that's 3 students, open enrollment, student tuition, and then contracted speech and services through Upland Hills, 60 minutes per week at $60 per hour for 36 weeks.
Thank you.
So 3 open enrollments and speech and language. Yes, the amount is the school's portion for Bill Ottaway. That is a shared cost with the city for a police liaison services. That would be the annual cost for the district.
Is that per hour, per day, or week, or how's it go?
That is annually, so the cost that you see there is for the entire year. We get billed at the end of the year.
But how often is care?
How long is he here?
I mean,
How many days a week?
How many days a week? Currently 3 days per week.
3-4 days a week,
3, 4
not through the summer?
Correct.
Oh. One more there, that Kristen Mitchell, I thought we were gonna do away with her criminal bills, her papers.
I don't recall any discussion about doing away with anything. I'm not quite sure what you're referencing there.
One meeting, we thought we could get away from her, with her fee there. Seems like it's pretty high, isn't it? She does quite a few projects, but
Is that for the,
Newsletter?
You get multiple, sometimes there's multiple things.
That's
on
the
the
Little
side.
Ranch Museum School.
We get several $100s back in advertising from that doesn't show on there, so.
And does that include the printing costs?
Yeah, that's printing, should be printing and mailing, right? I'm not sure.
Is this 3 times a year or 4 times?
This year it might only be 3. This also 4 maximum.
So this is for layout, design, and production time for the 16-page letter. The layout and design of the middle school scoop for both January and the month of April. The postage, the handwork of mailing 2,301 pieces of mail, and the printing of 2,400 newsletters.
so it's the production, the postage,
It is the layout, design, and production of the newsletter, the layout, design of the middle school scoop times 2, postage and handwork for 2,300 pieces of mail, and the printing of 2,400 colored newsletters.
One more question I have is, there's protective netting to the scoreboard. Is that this scoreboard or the one down below?
And be in the varsity gym here.
Is that for all of them? Or do we have some protective?
No, they're for 4 of them, 2 in the large gym and 2 in the small gym.
They're not protecting them at all?
Right now, you know, no, so.
Got by pretty good so far, I would?
Couple of repairs, but
Yeah.
yeah, we've been lucky so far.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call.
Passing,
Abstain.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Abstain.
Hay,
Yes.
Kinch,
Oh,
Stevenson,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes. Approval of budget amendments.
Annually, Marcia prepares the budget amendments at fiscal year end. It's a requirement as part of our DPI reporting and in preparation for the audit. All of the dollars that have been amended are in the budget. They just needed to be reconciled to the proper account to show that the balance is
45.
yes. Page 45.
Yeah.
I have a question. Were the summer school salaries just misclassified as extracurricular in the budget? Or why, I'm just curious as to why you need to add 22,000 to the extracurricular salaries.
I can ask Marcia what the purpose is behind that.
Which one are you referring to?
Page 45.
Oh, I don't see so. Those.
Any other questions on the budget amendments? You'll get back to
do I understand this? It says amend up here and 2 down there, so I assume it's taken from here to put there, or is-
Yeah, they're amending the expenditure, so they're taking the expenditure from and moving the expenditure to.
And elementary substitutes, we spent 15,000 more than was budgeted? Is that, looking at that correctly?
I can look into that as well for you.
All right, we need a motion to approve the budget amendments.
I'll move.
Motion by Julie, do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Larry.
How can you make a motion to do this with Lisa's questions? I kind of want those answered.
What choice do we have? I mean, it sort of, it can impact the coming budget, I think, and inform it possibly, but I mean, this
I mean,
is for
it's the same
last, this is for
amount,
last
so-
year.
Okay.
I agree, and to that extent, we'll certainly respond to all the board members with the answers to your questions. I just don't know the reconciliation process that Marcia used and why she took from here to put into there. She is finishing up year end because the audit is forthcoming, so I'd appreciate the approval so she can move forward with the audit. However, I think you're to the point that you're mentioning, Lisa, this does point to some areas we want to make sure that we budget for appropriately to make sure that those amendments are minimized for future years.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Passing,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Kinch,
Yes.
Stefas.
Yes. Personnel Services, approval of resignation.
We have 2 resignations. You saw Aaron Vale here today from speech and language. and Heather Dam from her clerical position. We recommend approving both of those resignations.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jeff. Second?
I'll second it.
Second by Larry. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Items for information and discussion.
Backing up, there was an update to the written agenda that you have in front of you and on the electronic agenda. We have approval of staff assignment, Julie Whitmer to a 1.0 FTE speech and language teacher. Commencing with the 16-17 school year, Julie's compensation is based on this year's compensation schedule, Master's Lane, step 14.
That's gonna be quite a bit more than what we were paying us.
Not as much so because Julie has shared with us that she would not need benefits.
So do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Jeff, do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Julie, so this replaces Aaron Vale, full-time, we have 1.0.
Correct.
All right. Any other discussion? We'll do a roll call.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Kinch,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Stefas,
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to welcome Dr. Sarah Fox to the table. If you want to take the front chair here. Dr. Sarah is one of our members that are on a board of trustees that have started an endowment fund for both the city and the education. And she's here to speak a little bit more about the educational component, but as well as context with everything else. And a little bit about the board and what the fund is and how it can be used and where you see as next steps. So welcome, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you. So we have just established some endowment funds with the Community Foundation of Southern Wisconsin that has endowment funds in many other communities in our area, both smaller communities than ours and larger than ours. And there's two different types of endowment funds that they typically manage. One is a community fund and another is an excellence in education fund. And we are starting up both, one of each. For the Excellence in Education Fund, which is the one that's more pertinent to this meeting, there's a requirement that you have a minimum of $10,000 invested to start the fund. And then the fund is used over the years. People would donate to that and it would grow and be invested so that there would then be this endowed amount of money that would come back to the school for projects that teachers want to do, or scholarships, or however the board would decide to direct those funds. So for example, we could put out a request for teacher grants for some sort of innovative program that people are looking for, or equipment fund, or things like that, and then this fund could be, those funds could be granted to the teachers to allow for them to do some things outside the classroom that wouldn't necessarily fit into the typical budget. So the great thing about the Excellence in Education Fund is that it's already got the minimum amount in the fund. It's already got the $10,000 because the money that we raised to print the Super Kids cookbook a few years back, that was money that was raised by community donations and things like that, and then we turned around and put that money right back into a school account. Well, it's been sitting in a checking account and not gaining interest or anything like that, so we took $10,000 from that and put it into this endowment fund. So it'll be directly come back to teachers, but also grow over time, so we have some opportunity to sponsor some teachers over time and things like that. The advisory board will direct both the community fund and the Excellence in Education Fund. The members of that, I've got my minutes here. It's myself, Kristen Mitchell, Monica Dunn, Nancy Harker, Lori Pitts, Lowry White, Jim Capley, Mike Wagner, and then Mary Giusiniti was on the board initially, and she has stepped down, so we do have one vacant seat that we'll be hopefully getting somebody for soon. And we are meeting monthly, and right now we're just kind of building how we're going to request donations and get forms set together and things like that. But eventually we will be meeting to approve grants and helping to get that money back into the school directly. So this would be something people could donate to just as a rolling donation or one-time thing, or people could have, as part of funeral plans and things like that, they may have their trust go into it, or they could request donations from family and things like that. And they accept donations, because we have it through the Community Foundation of Southern Wisconsin, they are equipped to accept donations in many different forms. So they've accepted a load of hay, or people have donated items to be sold at auction, and then that money turns around and comes right back into the community fund. So it's really, they're very well equipped to invest the funds and also accept the funds on our behalf and manage them so that we can then keep the money locally. Any questions from anyone?
Nothing can be used for 5 years,
No, we can start, so typically they like to have this minimum amount so that it can start to grow, but you can actually designate that 20% of your donation go to immediate use for grants. So we are going to be doing an 80-20 split, so 80% will go into the endowment. People could designate that I want this entirely to go to this year grants, and some communities around here actually have had times where they've had to spend a bunch of money because somebody donated something and wanted it spent in a certain amount of time. So we can really direct the funds however we want. The way kind of thinking larger picture about it, this $10,000 that's starting the fund, over 20 years, it's about a 5% return. So over 20 years, there'll be an extra $10,000 in that fund if we leave it in the endowment part. So we don't want to spend off too much of the initial endowment part, but we do want to make sure that we're investing in the annual grants that we're giving to people. So we will be having some funds directed right to give it to the teachers now, so that we can really start the process going for people.
Just a couple of notes. I want to thank, Jeff, I think in some of the previous boards you had mentioned had been talking about an endowment for some time, and Joelle and I have attended a few meetings to try to help get this off the ground and actually make it become an action item for us that actually was a deliverable for the board. Personally, Julie Stevenson and Dr. Sarah Fox for the hard work on the front end with not even having the vision of an endowment, but the Super Snacks for Super Kids book was a huge launch to get this off the ground and actually make this an actionable endowment. So it is functioning, it is live, people can contribute to it now, and it will start to contribute to better our kids. This is something that we're, as we sit here today, leaving a legacy for kids that will be grandkids and their grandkids long after us, but it started here and started in this time period. So I'm excited about your opportunity to help launch it, and I think we're going to be very well off for it down the road, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Library meeting.
Yeah, you want to join us, Chris?
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here today to share. What we're going to be doing is sharing the results of our Bright Bite survey and what's happening in our school, libraries, and instructional technology departments. So you can
We'll get there in just a second. A little something or other. So let's go back up to. Let's start. Sorry, Chris. I am way off. Let's reset this. Get out of the presenter view here and go back. I think we're good.
Okay, so you can actually go to the next slide even. We're on our third year of gathering technology and learning data through Bright Bite survey, and this slide just gives you an overview of what Bright Bite, what questions Bright Bite asks and what it is measuring. I have to say, in my role, it's really nice to have this data as we're writing tech plans or working on as part of the district's strategic plan. So you can see, if you look at the slide, that it measures what's happening in the classroom, access that's available both at home and school, skills, foundational online and multimedia skills, and also the environment. How's our tech support? How do we feel about using technology? People that are asked, people that take the Bright Bite survey are students in 3rd grade through 12th grade. our teaching staff and the community is asked to participate. So that's where we gather the data. The really good news on here is that you can see we're in the upper end of proficient, and we have an upward trend. So we continue to grow each time. And if you go to the next slide, there's a comparison of where we were, I'm sorry if it's difficult to read, in 2014 and where we are now and how we've grown. Access, we've moved to exemplary. Skills have left proficient and moved to, what was that, not emerging, advanced. So we are making really steady progress. We still have some room to grow in environment and the 4 Cs. The good news is we looked at this last year, and then we, Carrie and I, and along with administration, decided that that was going to be the focus of our professional development. And we didn't really have professional development built into this school year, so we did it via emails and staff meetings. So there was weekly things on the 4 Cs and measuring that type of data. So that's pretty much, unless you have any questions on that slide. We also can get benchmark comparisons to the nation, the state, and then the bottom 3 are us for the 3 years in a row and where we started. And you can see it again, it's been a steady trend. I'm really excited to see that we are actually above both Wisconsin and the nation's benchmarks. So keep in mind, these are schools that also take Bright Bites survey, but it's still a large number of comparisons. But so it's really nice to see us.
So not all schools participate in this?
No,
Okay.
no. I have to say though that we started in 2014. That was also the first year our tech plan, or not the first year, but our first year with Bright Bites was a year that our tech plan was renewed, and we used the Bright Bites data to write the tech plan. And in my 8 or 9 years here, this tech plan has been a working, living document. We base decisions on it. We set new goals. It continually evolves, and having this data made a huge impact in being able to do that.
It's now a CSET 3 product, so all area schools in CSET 3 can purchase into this survey, so we'll start to get, I think, even better data as far as comparables around this part of the state.
And we've been asked by other districts like how they're doing. We actually, I think you found Bright Bites, Luke, and sort of led the way. So that's good in the CSET areas. So you can. So then, what are the next steps? We can drill into specific reports. So here's a professional development, the 21st century teacher report, and it shows us in 2014 versus the 2016 report. And you can see how we're growing. An example is like online skills have almost doubled from 27% to 50%. Multimedia skills are going up, digital citizenship skills. And the more comfortable teachers are with those things, the more likely they're going to be used in the classroom. So if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, I would just say
Okay.
the bottom piece here, the confidence with technology from a teacher who can solve their own problems and can easily learn new technologies went from 63 and 67% to can solve their own problems, 81% and 71%. To easily learning new technologies. So we're seeing a lot of gains in teacher confidence in the classroom.
Yeah. So then that leads to, why do we do this and what next? And I kind of touched on this already. It really helps with planning and accountability. Are we meeting our goals? Have we listened to what our teachers, students, and families are saying regarding technology and instruction? Are we targeting needed areas for growth and professional development? Do we have equitable access? The list of questions could go on, but these are things that Carrie and I and Luke and the administrators actually sit down. Carrie and I meet weekly to discuss this and plan ahead, and then get feedback from everyone else. So here's just an example of a report that will help us guide PD. Teachers express an interest in the following PD topics. You can see that multimedia skills and online tools both tied at 49%. That ties back in with that professional report where the multimedia skills are growing and they're wanting more. So that's just a quick example. And here's a 21st Century Learner report. This is from the student perspective. So right here, I see a red flag that either we aren't using common vocabulary or we need to increase access so there's more opportunities to write online, and there's lots of things. So these are conversations, and we can talk to teaching staff, we can provide additional resources. But the data that's on here is encouraging, I think, really positive, and mostly shows growth. That 17% is kind of an outlier. So anyway, but that's just another example of a report. Then when we get these reports, there's also built-in game changers and quick wins, so we can go and they have actual links that give you tools and ideas and things to do. They also tell us if our schools are ready for these changes, because it's one thing to do PD, but if you're not ready to learn that yet, that means we need to do something else at the elementary to increase the interest in that area. So this is really valuable in planning. And I can tell you one of the things with the elementary when it scores lower is it's a lack of access. We've spent a lot of resources on, we've got the high school to one-to-one. We're going to be very close, or there at the middle school. I just checked in, just cataloged new Chromebooks for the middle school. Those are good and ready to go now. But the elementary has limited access. So when we start making it that everybody can use the device when they want to, it will just become easier. So again, that's good as a planning tool. So you can go right through that one. And then I just wanted to just really briefly go through what's changing in libraries. So it's a shifting focus. If you can think of the library as third space, a place where the student's world and the curriculum intersect, and the library is that space in the middle. And it's not, it can no longer be just a warehouse or a quiet place, a quiet study place. It should be a place where kids can come and they can think and read, rejuvenate, collaborate, create. And so we want our students to be creators of information, not just consumers. And so that's a big shift that we're trying to make in both libraries. So one of the things we started this year, and they will be increasing more maker spaces to support creativity in STEM. I hope you'll all come towards once school started and see some of the exciting things that'll be changing and how the libraries look different. So you can go to the next one, Luke. Increased media production. I know they already have a green screen at the elementary. We just got one for the high school. Teachers are very excited. They before we purchase something like this, it's a call out like who would use this? And I probably had 14 responses from middle school, high school. So that should be fun to see, and that ties back in with what we're hearing from Bright Bites. Now we have better opportunities for students. So we can go to the next one. We're going to be exploring Breakout EDU this year, which is team building and problem solving, and it takes, it puts a game aspect on solving, or like answering problems and finding information and research. It ties in so many skills. So I'm excited to learn more about that.
One of the skills that I would just mention that we are really focusing on is critical thinking. And so often in today's world, we're seeing kids not being able to critically think themselves out of a problem. And if they didn't have a Garmin or an app on their phone to tell them how to get somewhere, they couldn't think north, south, east, west, and how to find their way anymore. So we're trying to create problem solvers and critical thinkers through that next generation of kids.
So both our breakout, we have gotten those for elementary and the middle school, high school, and they'll be available in the libraries, but also for teachers to check out for classroom use. And we do plan on using them in professional development too, to give examples. And then the last two slides are continued encouragement of record-breaking reading. Reading is always going to be a core of what we do. Last year, our middle school students read 144,020,532 words as measured by their accelerated reader quizzes. They beat last year's records by over 22 million words.
How do you measure that now?
Based on the AR test that they take, each book, AR measures how many words are in that book. We had 35 kids read over 1 million words. And some read over, we almost had one get to 5 million words just in last school year, from September to...
How many words would be in a 200-page book?
Something we'll come back with. We'll let you know.
Yeah, I can let you know, because it's, I don't know off the top of my head like what
The instructional support that you give is much beyond just circulation bits.
Yeah, so that, and these are just a very few examples of instructional support is one of our most important things. All of these things are important, but so we provide resources, and then we also go in the classroom and work with teachers to integrate it into their instruction. So it's a dual, and that flexibility to be in the classroom when something is something new is being learned or a new tool is being implemented is critical. Lots of planning time goes into that. We meet with teachers. And
So is this just for teachers?
the instructional support is mostly, well, no, I mean, it's instructional support with the teachers to implement this into their instruction, and then it's student support, to be hands-on when it's actually happening. And those are just, probably a fifth of what we
Use
Yeah,
it.
so that's all I have. Thank you.
Do you measure reading speed at any times or not?
We don't through the library program. I don't know of anybody measuring it in the classroom.
It comes back kind of indirectly on some of the, like, not maps, but the
Pals.
Okay.
I think the elementary, like through the PALS and Hibble scores, that they would have more of that fluency.
Reading fluency, yeah.
We will be losing 1/8 of Chris this year as she's going into the classroom to support reading in the classroom for 7th graders this year and 8th graders next year. So we'll try to do our best to continue to maintain the services, but just recognizing that that's going to take a step back from some of the areas that her and Chris were able to push and continue to move forward. So thank you for being flexible enough to support us in that way.
You're welcome. So thank you for continued support of library and technology. So yes, and do step in and see some of the exciting things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Are we down to the power letter?
The book study, we reorganized that, moved that out of the superintendent's report. So that would be the next thing on the agenda. Do you want me to take the lead?
The book study?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You bet.
So the book study was something that Laddie had asked to bring back onto the agenda. He kind of thought we were moving forward with it, hadn't seen it on the agenda, talked to Larry, we put it back on. I had it in the superintendent's report, but I think it's better served under information and discussion for the board. We had left off on chapter 4, which is 10 signals that your school board is in trouble. And I left a little bit of the chapter summary there for you in the narrative of the school board. And I left some leading questions, questions 1 through 4, that ask some probing questions that might help you to prompt you for discussion around this. I've highlighted some ideas, but this is really a board discussion and a board opportunity to reflect on this particular chapter. So if you want me to ask some guiding questions, I can, or if you want to pick a question out of that group that spoke to you, or if you just want to have a moment to just kind of reflect about what grabbed you in the chapter and talk about that. This is your opportunity.
So, chapter 4, who wants to start off? Give us a rundown of what chapter 4 is about.
Sure. So there's 10 items that were pointed out that if your boards, so I'm just going to read the chapter 4 blurb right in the board packet. Chapter 4 identifies 10 common instances in which boards abandon their strategic role and in doing so interfere with the smooth aligned operation of the district. This makes the initiative the board wants to achieve harder to accomplish, even when the board thinks it is helping make things happen. Review the 10 signals in the chapter summary on pages 78 through 80, and 4 of those signals, 1, 2, 9, and 10, are a result of voting decision-making by the board. 3 in items number 4, 5, and 7 are a result of research policy influences, and 3, number 3, 6, and 8 are culture-based. Review the core values of the high-performing system outlined in table 4.1 and the core values and beliefs, and that's found on page 74. And then a question that would start the discussion is assess your board's performance over the last 3 years. What trouble signals did you successfully avoid, and to which signals has your board fallen victim, and which would be most difficult for your board to address and why?
Keep going, Luke.
Second question, think back to differences over the last 3 years between your board and the superintendent, the administration and/or teachers organization. What signals can you attach to them? Give specific examples and discuss how that conflict could have been avoided.
I guess I think that if you had a school board administration never had a conflict, you better have the perfect person that makes every decision correctly. The reason you have 7 members is so you get different inputs. Not all the people in the district have the same exact mindset on anything.
One example of that last situation, our elementary principal. Some of you people knew, so I didn't know when I came to the first one. And maybe it wasn't to be known, I don't know. But I was surprised when I read the contract he did get. Not that I'm objecting to it, but I didn't know it when I was here.
Maybe I'll just skip to question 4. Is the relationship between the board and the superintendent and the union leadership productive and professional? Yes, no question. How do you know? How do you communicate? How do you collaborate? How do you resolve differences? How do you celebrate together? And how do you share opportunities for improvement together? So maybe the first question is the relationship between the board, the superintendent, and the union leadership productive and professional, and how do you know?
We have a copy of the survey that was sent out to the staff. And clearly, the staff, if I'm reading this right, Luke, eighty of them responded.
What page are on there, Larry?
79. You got it back. Instead of just a flat-out survey, if instead of saying, having 4 choices or 5 choices, having them take some time to identify what the problems are, if there are problems, and if we deserve a pat on the back, it's examples of why we do that, and to get that, instead of just disagreeing, agreeing, or whatever the case may be.
We have the board evaluation, the survey on the agenda for closed session. If you wanted to speak to that more specifically in that part of the agenda, it might be an appropriate place.
Okay.
I think the book discussion is not going very well. I don't see this as being an excellent use of our time.
Well, I read it when I got it, and I don't need any more of an introduction to socialism, so.
I agree with Lisa at this point. I apologize, I did not have time to read it. That's why I wanted it moved to the end.
I read it when it was several months ago, when it was first on the agenda. I mean, I've read it. But either way, this has been on the agenda month after month. It's lingering. It's not at the forefront. These meetings run long. If we thought it made sense to have some sort of retreat and analyze ourselves at that point, maybe that makes some sense, but, I mean, we've got a lot more to do tonight. I'd prefer to move on. I move that we move on.
I'll second that.
All right, can we get some direction on the book study then, just table it until we hear further?
I'd scrap it.
Yeah, let's not table it anymore. Let's just stop it.
Okay.
I mean, if people want to read it, go ahead. It's a good read. I mean, I thought it was, Glenn didn't, but, you know, to each his own.
So, all right, we got a direction on the book study, Luke.
Whenever I got the book there, months ago.
We have a motion and a second to move on and not have a book study anymore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll do the Dear Colleague letter.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, your calling letter.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this until next month in light of the recent events in Orlando. Maybe a little insensitive to talk about it today.
So notice I put it under information and discussion, so we won't be taking any action.
I think we need to discuss it.
We should discuss it too.
Well, that may be true, but I think we can get the same discussion in July when it's not such a sensitive topic. And it's already a sensitive topic. And now you've got the situation in Orlando, which makes it more sensitive to a lot of people.
But that was an act of terrorism, I don't think it's that closely related to this year.
I'll second your motion.
So we have a motion to table it until next month. In the second, any other discussion, we'll do a roll call.
Bush,
Yes.
to table. Dolphin,
No.
Hay,
Yes.
Kinch,
No.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Basting,
No.
Stefas.
No. So it's been 6 months ago, we got an update on a state directive as to what we needed to accommodate or provide. Will you give us a rundown on that?
Sure. Title IX has been around since 1972, and the federal government has given some assistance to schools in the form of a letter that's referenced as the Dear Colleague letter that states that as part of Title IX's obligation regarding specifically transgender students, the U.S. Department of Education stated that schools should comply with obligations that would state that a transgender student has the ability to use the restroom or locker room of the gender that they identify with. This has been challenged by states, Wisconsin being one of them, and currently this will be playing out in the federal courts, more specifically around Title IX and the definition of the word sex. When we talk about you cannot discriminate based on sex, sex has traditionally meant gender, and the question is, does gender include transgender and or other sexual orientation? So with that, this will most likely be played out all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will most likely make a determination on the intent of the language as was written in 72. My recommendation to the board would be to handle any matters on a case-by-case basis and to just kind of be in a wait-and-see mode until we get clarification from the state and federal governments in this matter.
What are we doing right now?
Right now, we would be obligated to follow the Department of Education's recommendation for how to handle these matters should they arise, and we would follow the direction that's given to us as the most recent interpretation. And that's how we would handle it currently. I think in layman's terms how we would handle it is I would sit down and talk with the family that is concerned or identified as being concerned with either the safety harassment of their own student and or those students that are around them, and we would work out hopefully a workable solution where we would use a unisex bathroom. We could create unisex locker rooms. We have plenty of spaces and facilities to service the needs of students, and again, working with the families that are impacted closely and personally would be the best way to handle this particular matter.
Do we have a unisex bathroom here at all now?
We do, we have multiple.
And in the elementary.
Correct, yes.
This goes a little further, go ahead, Larry.
Are they lockable from the inside?
I believe the doors are lockable from the inside, yes.
Well, this goes a little further to the bathrooms. This is actually an improper interpretation of Title IX. It's an overstep of the U.S. Department of Justice, President, and whoever else is involved. And I don't think we have to comply with it whatsoever. The states are suing, and I think we just ignore the federal funds, and we don't have to do that. And as far as this transgenders, I don't recall his name, I read this quite a while ago, the head of the psychiatric department at Johns Hopkins Psychiatric Hospital wrote that it is a treatable condition and as such should be treated, and the sooner the better. And it has been determined that about 40% of the transgenders have suicidal thoughts and tendencies. So I don't know why you want to go along and encourage this. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I don't want men in the bathroom with my female members of my family.
You understand, as a public school, we welcome all students, no matter what gender they are.
I didn't say anything about not making a student welcome, but when you overstep and do that, you're violating the rights of the 99.98%. And they've already had a case in Chicago where a man was in a lady's bathroom, choked a 6-year-old into submission and drug her into the stall.
A transgender person?
Well, he was in the women's bathroom, he must have been transgender, right?
I would assume there's probably been some heterosexual males that have hidden in women's bathrooms to harm women.
Why, he wouldn't be allowed in there if he wasn't a transgender, would he? This is complete, utter stupidity. They're trying to destroy the morality of the community, the family fabric. Their ultimate agenda is asexual, no person to be a mother or father, you just be an it.
What's our intent here, Larry?
My intent, Andy, is as a father of 4 girls. And I care about all the girls in this school as much as my 4. And there is no way, Andy, that I can allow a male person to walk into a bathroom, a shower, a locker room with my daughters, or your daughters, or your nieces, your grandchildren, anybody. I cannot do that. And that's why I put this on the agenda. I know the states are going against this, suing the federal government, and I don't know what the right answer is, but I will bring this back for a vote next month, not to comply with this directive, I guess is what you call it. And how can one man hand this down to the rest of us, one person? His thoughts, his ideas, he did. He didn't go through Congress, from what I understand. Did he go through Congress?
This is not,
This is about our kids.
these are guidelines, and they're an interpretation of federal court decisions, interpreting what sex and gender identity means. They're interpretations of Title IX, which is a law that's been out there since 1972. Our obligation, just to be clear, we have to follow the law. We have to. And this is providing some guidance on how to comply when and if we are faced with a situation like this. It's helpful. It gives some practical guidance to school administrators.
What court cases have there been with transgenders, as it said, just as all come up, I don't think there's any Supreme Court cases whatsoever on transgender persons.
There have been circuit court decisions that have interpreted sex to include gender identity.
Well, if you have a transgender bathroom, why worry? When they lock the door.
Yeah, but they can play basketball on a girls' basketball team and whatever. It's a bunch of baloney.
Well, whether the issue of basketball and whatnot, the WIAA has rules that's.
No, it says right there, whatever they think they are.
What I understand,
That's,
Lisa, you're saying is we're supposed to sit back and comply with it with all these unanswered questions.
Yeah, we have an obligation to follow the laws that we all swore to that.
Well, how come
When we sat
everybody
down at
didn't
this
look
board.
and support the Act 10 then? Everybody in the schools were up there fighting that and all the crap that went on up there. Nobody wanted to worry about following that law.
You know, the kids at the elementary school wear those orange shirts that say empathy. That's what we have to do. We should all wear orange shirts and we should show some empathy.
I don't think one of us are saying not to allow whatever gender they are, whatever race they are, the doors are open, I welcome them in as I do my own kids. But when it comes to sharing the bathroom with a male, with my daughter, that's where, as a father, how can you sit there and say as a mother that your daughter would be okay in the bathroom with a boy?
If your daughter is not okay in that situation, then
I have to make alternative accommodations. I'll put a porta potty outside then, if that's gonna be good enough for my daughter.
I feel like
We don't have to adhere to this law. All they can do is take their money.
That's a long way away yet anyhow.
It is, which gets me
That's what
back
I'm
to-
curious what our intent
It's
is
gonna go round and
currently,
round before this.
without direction
tired of this.
from federal or state or, I mean, I think it's a good discussion to have once we have a potential motion or action or state definition or a ruling. But at this point, we're just taking the opportunity to, I don't know, offend people on both sides of the fence.
One action the board can take, because I think this is a matter that the board will be divided on, and therefore there's no good reason to try to persuade the other side to agree with side A or side B of this particular issue. That would be a futile exercise in that it's clearly a divided board. Around that then, you could try to get clarity from your community. You could ask for a standing committee that the board would appoint. They would study this matter and bring back a recommendation to the board, and the board could act on that recommendation. But to the point that has been brought out tonight. We're still bound to follow the state and federal law as it's written and interpreted. And if we don't, then there would be potential consequences for that, which I could research and share with the board. We are a subscriber to the National School Lunch Program that's attached to federal dollars, so free and reduced lunch could be in jeopardy. So that would mean that potentially we would have to talk about subsidizing those lunches for kids that couldn't afford them. It gets into a very big and complicated discussion. All Title I, II, and III funds are attached to the federal dollars. That's a discussion that, much like we were saying before, is had after we get clarity and make a decision that we will or will not follow a state or federal law. But at this point, we have the ability to accommodate all students safely and comfortably in our school. We don't have to force kids to use one bathroom or the other, as we have unisex bathrooms and locker rooms available. We'll work closely with families that work with me to identify their needs, and we'll make sure that everybody is treated and we fairly, and that we have a safe and an inclusive environment for all students. So if the board wished to pursue this further, I would suggest a standing committee that's appointed by the board that makes a recommendation back to the board of how to best proceed for our community at large.
Well, I already considered all those things you just stated, so.
In theory, though, our federal money isn't very big, is it?
I'll come back with that number. I couldn't tell you exactly what the number is.
It's around 373,000, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood, that's all we get.
And that's probably just in Fund 10, which is the general fund. I'm not sure if that includes Fund 50, which is the school lunch program.
I think it does, but I don't know for sure.
That's what I could look at that as well.
And was it in the directive that funding would be pulled if we don't comply, or it could be pulled?
It could be. There's an interpretation that that's basically what happens when you don't follow state and federal law, is that schools are funded by local governments, or decisions are made at the local level, but are attached to state and federal funding, and with those come laws that will audit us for compliance.
Okay.
So annually we fill out an Office of Civil Rights report that would have to disclose these types of policies potentially if asked.
So if the board decided not to comply, just had a flat-out motion not to comply with this directive, what would you be required to do, Luke?
I think at that level, it would be best for the board to request that legal counsel sit down and share with the board. You can choose the legal counsel of your choice that you feel most comfortable with to do their best to interpret the law and share the consequences for not following the law. I think I would get out a little bit too far in the weeds in my field of expertise to start to make some speculation, and I think it would be best to hear it from somebody that is probably working on behalf of many schools to try to clarify the intent of the law and the consequences that would be afforded thereof for following or not following.
At this point now, we're following law.
At this point, we are, at this point, we would be in compliance, but again, we would use the opportunity to work with the family specifically to identify unisex opportunities and areas for use, and we haven't had any requests specifically for anything above and beyond that need at this time.
So my question is then, Luke, during non-school hours, let's say during a basketball game or a extracurricular activity at the school, and we have a rapist in our building and claims he's transgender and he wants to go into the girls' bathroom, what tools are you going to have to say, no, you can't do that because you want to cause harm to our girls? What are you going to do?
Well, there's a lot of variables in that. Is this a known person that is in our building? Is there a restraining order that allows or doesn't allow somebody to be on school grounds, which would be the case with a sexual predator? There's a lot of iterations to this that is probably best explored again with law enforcement.
And that's the reason behind this, Andy, is we don't know.
We could put a sign on the door out there.
I'm not disputing
No
that, I just don't
transgenders
know
allowed
for
in
this
ladies'
evening
bathroom.
what our
That'd take
intent
care of
is.
it right then and there.
I'm not disputing your concern at all, or anybody
And
else's.
I don't want to break in, Luke, but we don't know. We could have somebody that wants to sell girls into sex labor, which is a big deal, I guess, in this world, from what I understand. Well, they can start going into girls' bathrooms. Walk into a public school, because I guess you can go anywhere you want.
No, you can't, tell them they gotta leave, but they tell you you're transgender, they can go in. How do you know they're transgender? That's
That's what I
That's a
mean.
pretty good cover for a sex predator.
Unbelievable. It is unbelievable. And I'll look
This
right
is
in that
complete
camera right now and
stupidity.
say that this is crazy. And again, I will open the doors to these schools for all kids. I will love them, I will nurture them, and I will teach them and protect them as much as my own daughters. But don't ask me to send my daughters into a bathroom with boys. I won't do it. I think it's time to move on.
I do too. Let's pass it on and get some more information. I think you're probably gonna throw it out anyhow, down the road.
Where, if they give us any idea of these state lawsuits,
No,
it's gonna take 75 years?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Might will change next year.
Yeah, I'm
Some of them.
public will throw it out.
If it doesn't, the fence is maybe further this way instead of that way.
And that could be a problem too. For preliminary budget, Luke?
Yeah, I placed this in items for discussion. I did not place this in items for action. I think it would be best to bring this back in the month of July and have a more in-depth discussion with an opportunity to ask questions and get clarification around the budget summary and the budget. And just over the weekend, there were factors that, again, caused us to continue to update the budget summary. As we all know, the preliminary budget is a work in action, and even up through the number of kids that come into the district or don't come into the district, open enroll in or don't open enroll in. All of these factors will play into the final budget, which includes property valuations and so forth. So the final budget isn't really approved until September, with a certified budget in October. With that said, I will give you a month-to-month update of where we're at. But at some point, we just need to take a snapshot, lock down, so that we can start to make some expenditures to front load, so that when the teachers come back, we have paper in classrooms, we have just materials ready to go and so forth. So with that said, I've prepared a preliminary budget. The budget summary right now, I would characterize it as a overall, you'll see, and this is an update from the board packet. I sent this out over the weekend, but I can share with you from last year to this year, our overall revenue is down, and that's a reflection of the state budget. Our overall expenditures are also down. That's a reflection of our due diligence to make sure that we're matching those reductions. Overall, I have what I would consider a budget neutral or flat budget. I'm showing a small surplus here that is really pinching down some things that if everything seems favorable and students are coming back into the building and we have enrollment that's relatively flat, I would probably take some of that surplus and push it back into places that I really squeezed hard on. But this was probably one of the most challenging budgets I've had to put together yet, because we still want to continue to move forward and grow as a district, but yet we still need to be fiscally responsible with the revenue that's given to us. So with that said, I'll be a little bit more specific about some of the items that are in the budget. You can go line by line and see these different pieces, but I'll be able to share these more in specifics now. With regards to, you'll see a line item for virtual school fees. Those have been reduced. We no longer will have to purchase all of these courses from the virtual school because we pre-purchased Apex Learning.
Are we still going to have the Wisconsin virtual school?
It will still be available to us for courses that are not offered through Apex Learning. We have done a reduction in postage for a few years running. We have seen that we're mailing less and we're doing more electronically with communications. So we've been able to reduce at the elementary, middle, high school, and district level the postage budget. We did reduce the smartboard purchases. We have purchased 3 in this fiscal year, but in this budget, that would be something I would build back in. It was a pre-approved expense or expenditure by the board as part of our technology budget, but as we had to make decisions and calculations about how to put a budget together, those are some things that are currently off to the side.
Have we gotten feedback on the alternative boards at all?
Yes, we have 2 different boards that we are exploring that are at lesser price points than the smart board. It's called the J-Touch and the Epson. Both have pros, both have some cons. And I wish Chris were still here to make a final recommendation because I've heard some really good things, but they also had just a couple weeks at the end of the year to kind of work some bugs out, some things that they thought would be compatible and then they found out weren't and those kinds of things. But I do believe that there's some working scenarios, and I think what it's going to come down to is we will be able to match the proper board for the proper need. Some people need to drive a board that has a lot of other things to it because they use it in a different way. Some are more just a glorified visual display, much like this. It doesn't need to have a lot of other capabilities built in with moving things at the front of the room or having students interact with it, 2 or 3 kids at a time. So if it's truly just the need to project, I think we can get into a smaller price point.
Is it much of a difference? It's like $3,500 for a smart board.
Yeah, I want to
versus-
say like 18 and 2,400 for the other 2, but this is from memory, and but it is, yes, they're less. So we could almost get into 3 for the price of 2 in some cases, which would be a better return on our dollars. We did take the Chromebook purchase that the board had approved in 7th and 8th grade, and we removed that from our budget in the 15-16 school year, so that did not carry forward and impact next year's budget. We just pre-purchased those with dollars remaining this year. This does include the addition of a full-time resource officer, so you'll see a budget line increase for that particular expense. That would put Bill Ottaway in our school district, and it could be Bill or other, but right now it would be Bill's position moving from 3 days per week to 5 days per week.
When did we vote for that?
You did not vote for it. That is just something that I put into the preliminary budget for your consideration.
We're on that, back in the budget projected back to 16, 17. There's a fee there for Bill for $20,750. What is that for?
That's his annual salary. That's half of the annual salary. You see half of it is expended to Fund 10, the other half is expended to Fund 20. I'm sorry, Fund 80.
That's what he gets?
That's salary and benefits annually, yes.
What was the 37?
That's our portion.
That's our portion, correct.
So what was the 37.5 that we paid the city in the bills payable? I thought that was what that was for.
So it would be the city of Middleton, or Mineral Point, is that what you're speaking? Thank you.
I might have just misread it.
No, the entire check,
Yeah. Middle Point Police Department liaison, 37.5. I thought this was what we were talking about next year.
so I have the city of Mineral Point invoice here. Was that on the additional bills payable?
No.
No.
Okay, so that was a total of,
Sorry about
does it match up to 108,229?
108,288. You should be close, because it was
Close. Six, seven, eight. So yes, the request for the previously agreed amount of $37,500 be the full payment for the aforementioned school year. That was from police chief to Mr. Wainwright. I think, so I've got $37,500 is the invoice.
That's probably just taken from those 2 budgeted lines, though.
Yeah, it is, it's
The other half is in Fund 80.
Yeah, 16,750 came from
There's
Fund.
another 20 budgeted,
Yes.
another 2750 in Fund 80,
Correct.
if you go down to the bottom.
Well, it's budget 22,910 for next year.
Yeah, 2750 came from Fund 80, 16,750 came from Fund 10. That's for salary and benefits for Mineral Point's portion. So yeah, 37,500 is for the annual.
That's our portion
That's our portion currently.
for
3 days of police liaison coverage.
So, how many weeks do we have?
That'd be 36 weeks, 181 school days this year.
The budget is 5.
Next year's budget is for
So
5
that's
days.
what, $5 a week for 3 days?
Well, what we approved in bills payable, is that for last year's?
That's for last year.
Okay.
Also included in the preliminary budget for this year is a replacement of an internet filter. That, where a 3-year license is up, we have to replace that. It has to stay what's called CIPA certified, which allows us to receive E-rate funding. Obviously, we need to have an internet filter at schools, and this would be a 3-year purchase, so you'd only see this as a one-time upfront cost for 3 more years of filtering. Addition,
Roughly.
I think it was $12,000, a one-time expense. There is a proposal for an addition of an alternative school, which is actually an item for action later, so I'll speak to that later in the agenda. Addition of a RUS grant match, and this is kind of foreshadowing what I just learned this morning, but a consortium of 5 schools across southwest Wisconsin was awarded the Cisco RUS grant. This is a competitive grant that's awarded across the country, and we were one small consortium of schools here in southwest Wisconsin that won this grant. It's going to put additional telepresence equipment in our schools and will be an addition of $100,000 across our consortium. There is an E-rate match, so again, we are pulling fiber up to the school, and the E-rate will fund 60% of that project. That's federal dollars to help bring broadband and connectivity to rural schools. 60% of that cost is borne by E-rate, 40% needs to be in our budget to cover that expense as well. There is in this budget, the addition of after-school programming and the ability to run 2 different late bus routes. That would allow us to grow a program for students that we're not able to reach during the school day. We've talked about our Tier 3 needs, and our teachers are busy teaching every hour of the day. There's no time to support them in literacy or math, and oftentimes transportation is a problem. So we have built that into the budget. It probably wouldn't launch week 1, but as we grow into understanding the needs of the students and which students would need to stay after school, we would have an opportunity to get them at least geographically to a space in the outskirts of town. This does have additional graduate credits that were built in. That was part of the board-approved piece working towards Mr. Wainwright's superintendency licensure program, so that has been built in. And then we do have, or will build in the addition of ELL teacher and instructional assistant, but that's pending a review of DPI. They have given us a preliminary indication that they have reviewed it initially, but they have some additional clarifying questions about the current levels of support that we're receiving from CESA 3, which is minimum to none. The amount of money that we pay CESA 3 to receive those supports, which is currently $850. I think the line of questioning is to reduce our request by the amount that we're already paying CESA 3, which would be less $850, which we would no longer be paying them if we had in-house services. So those are the big overreaching goals that I've put into this preliminary budget. We can certainly talk about any aspect of that today, but I will have this again on the agenda for July as an action item to actually approve a preliminary budget so that we can continue to move forward with making some expenditures in preparation for next school year.
On number 10, is that going to be mandatory to some students?
It could potentially be mandatory.
By the school or who?
We would make it, obviously it's an after-school program, so if a parent is absolutely adamant that they would not want to remediate their kids and have them read at grade level by staying after school, we couldn't force a kid to stay. However, we would give them an option to say, if you don't stay after school, then it may have to be summer school, and if it's not summer school, we may be looking at Saturday, and if it's not Saturday, then you've got to go into 2 classes of language arts during the day. But the idea is you're not reading at grade level, and somewhere, somehow, some way, we have to work with you to bring you up to speed. So we're going to create opportunities to make the ability to say, no, we aren't interested really hard, because there's barriers right now that we're removing.
Are we gonna vote on each of those items individually, or are you gonna throw them all in the budget, so one shot?
So currently, these are all in the preliminary budget. This is the budget that I'm presenting to the board for approval. You can choose to take any one of those items, pull it out, discuss it, vote on it, to leave it in, take it out, amend it. The budget is really at the board's discretion, and then based on what you do approve, that gives me my marching orders for the year on the programs that I do or do not implement. So to that point, Glenn, if there's something that you'd like to pull out and have a discussion about tonight, it's in the information discussion, and we can take the time the board would like on these items, or you can review them and ask clarifying questions over the next month. We can have finance committee meetings, policy meetings, or we can just put it as a standalone agenda item for our next board meeting where we'll make decisions.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said on number 9. What is that one?
That's the fiber project that's
Okay,
being pulled up.
okay, I did hear more. And then on number 8, that's, you said it was 100,000 roughly.
Across
amongst
five
the 5
schools.
schools,
Yeah.
so we would only have to come up with 20,000.
About 20 to 25,000, right?
Okay.
You know, each school didn't get the exact same equipment because we were a little further along than some others, and others were even further than us, but
I mean, for us to get that grant, we have to come up with that money, or we
yeah,
lose the
it's
grant.
roughly 50 cents on the dollar.
Maybe what would be helpful, Luke, is, in the next week or two, give us a description, explanation, and a cost or a reduction in the amount, just so we can look at it and see the impact.
It would be nice, I wouldn't mind going through the whole budget. I mean, I went through the attachment. I couldn't read all of it because of the scrunching of the, what looked like maybe it was a spreadsheet. And so you couldn't read all the words. I don't know if your version is
Yeah,
the
same
same.
way, I can't read it, but the whole thing, largely don't help.
I mean, it looks like it wouldn't take that long to go through it, maybe like an hour. You know, if we could, I don't know how you want to do it, I mean,
Is it available in Excel form where
It is.
the landscape version is? 'Cause
So
it's
you
tough
could-
to,
you could
it's tough to
forward
go
the
down to the
Excel.
next year
Yeah.
and try and figure out what line it is.
Yeah.
yeah, that might help.
Board book forces it into a PDF, so it's a
Yeah.
readable document, but I can certainly forward the Excel document, and then you could pull out those longer
Being able
texts.
to compare
and
50
descriptions
to
and
60.
Even ask me, what description that is referring to or referencing. Some of the descriptions are outdated and don't even reflect what the actual line item is because we just carried over. For instance, the Wisconsin Virtual School is relatively new, but we're using the Teach for America funds that we used to receive back a decade ago as the line item for that. So to clean up all of those would be just a tedious task at some point, but we know where we're categorizing things. So I could certainly, I'll put the Excel version forward. Sounds like that's of interest. And then I'd be happy to meet and discuss if the board wanted to, or we can put it on the next agenda, whichever you choose.
So is number 12, the addition of the ELL teacher, is that completely one full position above what we're already doing?
Correct. So, and that would actually encompass the work that Myra was doing and give her a support person so that she could be in 2 classrooms at the same time. Essentially, one is directing the services and one is just helping with the secondary language components. And so this would be a revenue limit exemption as a transfer of service. It follows the student that came in from Peru last year, and that was some of the clarifying questions is they want to ensure that the student that came was from another governmental agency and those services truly did transfer here to Mineral Point. In other words, we're being asked to deliver services without any extra means. And we're asking the Department of Public Instruction to look favorably upon this because not every day do you get a student from Peru that is not English speaking. And secondly, if you do, most schools have some types of supports already built in.
So you're hoping for some reimbursement?
Yes, yeah.
On that item 10 there, I think you're gonna have an awful hard time getting that justification for the cost or what you're going to gain on education.
Explain what you mean by that. I'm not sure I follow.
Well, you're gonna run 2 buses, and I don't know what your cost of your teachers is gonna be, and I don't know how much they're gonna learn, but it looks to me like it's gonna be awful hard to have it be effective cost-wise.
This would be identified for students that are performing below grade level. And so this would be specifically targeted for those types of students, not necessarily a late bus for after-school sports, although it could grow into something like that if we're taking kids to one part of the community and there's a program that wanted to ride. We certainly wouldn't not say kids could attend, but this is identified specifically for those kids that are in a tier 3 need and need that extra support. We're already working with them throughout the entire school day, and the only way that we're going to be able to remediate them further is to find additional time. And that additional time has to come outside of the normal school day. And I don't believe that 2 buses may be needed. It's only if geographically we have to go north-south or east-west, but if we only have a dozen kids at the elementary and a dozen at the high school, and we're taking 25 kids, maybe it's a Monday, Thursday, we go east and west, or we just go to the north and south. It kind of depends on where the kids fall. So we just don't know yet if 2 buses are needed, but we think we can cover it using 2.
It's not gonna be very popular.
Might there be, I mean, would it all be free programming, or would there be some?
Yeah, this would replace, or I shouldn't say replace, but it would be in addition to the students that are currently in the after-school program paid to be part of an enrichment program, but there is also some remediation that's going on. This would be an extension of the school day, essentially. So yes, it would be a free service that we're providing for kids that are identified specifically not at grade level in math or in reading.
And similar, like we have the middle school homework club, and it ties into, anybody can stay for the extra help, but it ties into eligibility. So if, for instance, if a student is receiving an F or more than 2 Ds, they're required to attend so many homework clubs in a 3-week period.
My experience has been when we talk to parents directly about a student that's not reading at the same level as his or her peers, and we're creating an opportunity to work with them after school at no cost to them. We will get them to a regional place next to their house. That most parents are very accepting of the extra support and help because they want what we want, which is to make sure their kids graduate and are literate and can do good math. And to that extent, this is the next step in our intervention program to make sure that every kid is proficient when they leave high school.
Take the computers away from them, and maybe they read a little more.
And you must have some idea of how many kids we're talking about again.
Yeah, tier 3 typically is about 5% of your overall population. If it's more than that, then you've got a tier 1 or tier 2 problem, which means you don't have good instruction happening in the classroom, or that the remediation that's happening during the school day isn't doing what it needs to do in order to really service the kids that are not learning. So
35 kids.
Yeah, roughly around 35 kids is what you'd identify as trying to push toward proficiency, and we keep working with that bottom group.
That's from grade K right on to 12.
Yes.
Would it be every night after school program or 4 nights a week?
It's to be determined. Right now we have Wednesdays is still our collaborative release time, so most likely it'll be a 4-day-a-week program, but there might be some opportunity to do some remediation with non-teaching staff Wednesday afternoons as well. That might be a fairly good chunk of time if we had others. And I think of like Marla Martin, for example, who's not part of our certified teaching staff, but has the ability to work underneath the Title I lead like a Rachel Schrader to deliver services during that professional learning community time to remediate some students around reading.
And the program could be monitored in 2 months. If it's not working out, you just pull the pin on it, right?
Absolutely. This is a week-to-week, month-to-month, and I would expect that the board would want to monitor this program for effectiveness, to see some results of the number of kids we're working with, maybe see some of their growth data and trends to make sure that it's doing what we anticipated it would be doing.
How many teachers would it entail?
Most likely 1 or 2 teachers in literacy and 1 or 2 teachers in mathematics after school. One probably like an intermediate to elementary level and 1 in intermediate to secondary level.
Be like an hour class.
Roughly, thinking about 3:30 to 4:30, a little bit with bus routes and bringing the guys and gals back in from their first route and then picking up a second and running would be maybe almost a 3:40 to 3:45 to 4:45. We still want to get kids home at a reasonable hour in that 5 to 5:30 range.
Could we try it without late buses? If you're thinking of 5 o'clock, parents that are going home from work or are at home, I guess if we're willing to invest into the teachers, I mean, the parents should be on the hook for something.
Yep, we certainly can attempt to have parents pick up. I mean, that would be our first preference, is we're gonna start to work with your student. We do that currently with Homework Club, but I think Vicki could attest to some of the students that simply aren't able to stay because they don't have a ride.
Right.
And so then we lose them, and then if we're not working with them, they just go home and come back without ever closing that gap between their peers.
I have a little bit of a hard time understanding if somebody hasn't learned how to read by 8th grade, that you're going to be able to get them to read to the level in the next 4 years. I mean, I don't understand how that could occur. I mean, if you haven't learned in 8 years, what's 4 more years going to do for you?
What I can assure you is that 4 more years of nothing will definitely get you nothing.
Well, I don't know.
4 more years of
4
something
years.
will close the gap, and I'll show you the data.
We've got kids here that can't read at 8th grade though.
We have some students in 8th grade that are not proficient in reading. I wouldn't say that they can't read, but they are not proficient.
Well, you could change the IEP, that'd take care of that.
Some of the students aren't necessarily under an individual education plan. They're students that would be
I'll do that, make it easy.
There's new laws that calls you to qualify for an IEP, and not every student has that ability.
What I would recommend, we keep this on the regular July agenda, and if we can't make it through, if you have questions and don't get them all ironed out, I guess can we run it to the August agenda, Luke, or when is the deadline for a budget to be passed?
We're putting some of these things in place. You know, as you start to look at the replacement of internet filter is a requirement. When we look at the alternative school, we need to do a posting following this item for action. And as we look at the Russ grant match, the E-rate match, those are things that if we can't give them a guarantee now, then the project doesn't go forward. The late school buses, that could wait, but we're trying to put, again, after-school programming in place. Mitch's graduate credits are already approved. BLL teachers pending DPI. Going backwards, we've already pre-purchased. The postage is a reduction, virtual school fees are a reduction. So there's really nothing here that
I guess
wait till August.
where are the good ones? We could have a special meeting after the July meeting if we need one.
Can you get a cost for some of those to us or not?
Absolutely, they're all in the budget already. I can just direct you to the line item that it refers to, so I'll give you a budget code and so forth. And again, this is a preliminary budget, this isn't the final budget. This will change once we have more kids coming in or not coming into the school in August. These numbers will have to change, and that means we'll have to make additions, putting more money in certain places, taking it out of others. So nothing that you do here does anything other than lock down in concept the way that we're going to proceed for next year.
Do we know anything finite on the scarcity grant? It wasn't fully funded last year.
Yeah, I don't have any additional information other than we're anticipating similar dollars for sparsity aid. We will still qualify because they actually have increased the thresholds for how to qualify, and we're still well underneath that. So it bids us well as we start to gain in our enrollment, hopefully over time. We have a little bit more wiggle room. We may not lose that aid as quickly as we might have in the years past, but we should still continue to qualify.
What do you mean it wasn't fully funded?
There's what's called sub-sufficient, and I forget the other term, but essentially what they have is a pot of money, and they distribute it out to the schools that qualify until that money's gone. And so to that extent, sometimes you don't know the full amount that they are going to fund that at. And so they were able to fund it to its full extent last year because they actually increased the amount of categorical aid that is available to the schools. But should there be more schools that qualify than dollars available, then they would pay it out in kind of a prorated manner until everybody gets their equitable share. And then at that point, when the money runs out, that's as much as you have.
Did we get 130?
We're going 260 or something, right?
It was
Yeah,
130.
I would have to look at that number.
It's pretty good to pay, over 200, I think.
Different recollection.
Any questions on the budget? The more information for the board before the next meeting,
Yes.
it'll go faster. Items for action.
I do have before you an item for action, which is an approval of an alternative school. A little bit of background is the alternative school is currently called the Renaissance School of Learning. It is located in our old high school building on the first floor. That building is currently being rented by CESA 3, They offer the services for students that are not necessarily under an IEP, but they are not succeeding in a traditional school setting. The CESA model is that you pre-purchase seats in advance, determining on how many kids you know will not be participating in your high school, but need an alternative set of programming toward graduation. That purchase price per seat is $8,500 per kid. We have always pre-purchased 2 or 3 or 4 seats depending on our students' needs. And every year we have probably used an additional seat that was unforeseen until you get into the school year and realize the kid is not succeeding in our school setting and we need an alternative opportunity for them to succeed. CESA 3 has stated that they are financially not able to continue to move forward with the program. They have costs to manage the program from Fenimore here in Mineral Point, sending out liaisons and so forth. That is being reimbursed for travel time and mileage and so forth, coupled with the retirement of Paul Stoffaker, which I mentioned at the last board meeting, has given them pause in thought about continuing the program. That would be a huge loss for Mineral Point. As I've stated, we've annually had students and continue to have students that are in the alternative program. We anticipate between 1 and 3 students next year from Mineral Point. Dodgeville would be another big user of the alternative school because they are so located, but also Pecatonica, and I've got the other students here on the actual budget. So we got Darlington, Dodgeville, Fenimore, Mineral Point, and Pecatonica. So we have 12.5 spots that are confirmed, and Joe Price, who's the director at CESA, has stated, what I start with is never what I end with. There's always kids that come to us throughout the school year that need a place to finish up their programming. Upon the end of the alternative schools programming, the students receive a diploma from their high school, but they would use a different curriculum other than what they're using at their previous school. Joe approached Mineral Point. We did look at the numbers preliminarily. I had given it consideration, didn't feel like we had enough time to really pull together a plan for next year, and responded with a decline that we were interested in hosting the alternative school. We just felt it was too much, too fast, and we needed a full year to prep the board. CESA 3 then stated that they really had no other option, and instead of trying to limp along and work with us for a year and try to transition over next year, they were giving us an indication they were simply going to fold the program altogether. Folding the program would have really challenged us, not only to find programming in the greater Southwest Wisconsin area for students that traditionally are not succeeding here, but financially and just logistically, we wouldn't have had an answer for some of our students that are on path to graduate. So we looked at the numbers again. I sat down with Joe on numerous occasions. We looked at salary, we looked at benefits, we looked at the services. This is a benefit to us in that we've already pre-purchased Apex Learning, which is something that can be used in this environment, so that's no cost to us. There's other things that just naturally happen, like I mentioned, the coordination between Fenimore and Mineral Point is eliminated. And as we go down, a lot of the capital costs that they had in the overhead, we just simply don't have. So with that, I do have a budget that is, I think, a very conservative budget that would show that at the end of the year, if we had 12.5 students, and this, I should project here, is actually the alternative schools budget, and we then put in our numbers into their budget. So there's no hidden cost. This is everything they had to run their program. We've already included into this budget as well. We are, I call it a break-even point. It does show a surplus of $2,000. Essentially, I call that a break-even in an $85,000 budget to run the alternative school. I anticipate that actually every student that comes in over 12.5 is roughly $8,000 to $10,000 more in revenue. The reason I say that range is if you pre-purchase a seat, it's $8,500. If you need a seat after September 1st, it's $10,000. And then that $10,000 is prorated on the number of days of school left remaining in the school year. So we would, any student that would come in, this is kind of our basic entry-level base cost. More students would be more revenue to the district. This isn't really being put together as a revenue generator, although over time, if we were to grow the program, right now it's a 9 through 12. If we were to expand it to be a 6 through 12, I could see the opportunity for additional students to come in And using the Apex Learning and freshening up that environment, I could see other kids wanting to maybe attend the alternative school.
So you would still pay the 8,100 and leave it at the old school?
Yes, yeah. That's the monthly rent that is currently being paid. And we would continue to rent that for now. Over time, we would look at possibly relocating that. But in year one, we're just trying to transition, and the less disruption and change to services, the better, until we can figure out our model.
Relocating it where?
That's a good question. We had talked about possibly the school district here, but in some cases, there are influences in this building that could influence others, or vice versa, and that may not be the best environment for students that need a sensory break and or a place where they can focus in on their learning. So for right now, in year one, we would suggest to keep it at the alternative high school, or the current setting, the old high school, and we would investigate a way that we could find a different location at potentially a less cost, or if there was a way to find a room, let me just say, for example, our FCE room coming off the back of the building by the agricultural building sits idle most days. If that space were to become an alternative school, we would save the $8,100. But I'm not so sure that doesn't create some other challenges that we haven't really thought through, and I'm not sure it's the best option. But we do have a budget that would work in year one and give us the time to figure some of those questions out.
I'm concerned that if we approve this, that this would move to the school. Is that a possibility?
Only with board approval.
That's a possibility. Well, we were gifted with a severe, profound, many years ago, the same kind of a deal like this. It was through CISA. It was going to be a big, big deal for Mineral Point. It didn't turn out, and I don't think it's something we ought to get into myself.
My bigger fear would not be that we would make a plea to move it to the school to save the money. My fear would be that that space gets reutilized in a different manner, gets rented out to a different party. It is a month-to-month, year-to-year lease. And as long as we can create a partnership that gives us some assurances long-term that we can be there, I think that's our preference. But again, we don't own that space any longer, and therefore we don't control that rent. And that's the only factor that I'm more concerned about, rather than making a pitch to try to make it here. I think it's a great environment to allow kids to come off campus and get an alternative education to the traditional books and mortar classrooms that we have. It's a kind of a non-traditional setting that's got a little more flexibility. It's a little bit more blended learning approach, and a little bit more portfolio based than always taking paper and pencil tests and so forth.
And if we take this over, it doesn't turn into open enrollment, so affect our enrollment numbers?
Nope. What this is actually a 6603 agreement, which is an intergovernmental arrangement between school districts that say I'm pre-purchasing or purchasing seats from you. So they are not actually open enrolling into our school district or out of our school district. It's just a flat fee per seat. Dodgeville also would like to take next year and just reflect on what year after next looks like, and we might work jointly together. Their high school principal, Laura Nyberg, and I were cut from the same cloth in that we both had a working and very successful alternative school that we worked under in our previous district together, and we understand what can happen and the possibilities, and I'd like to try to collaborate with her to see how we might grow this into a program that meets some of the needs that were even being discussed for those that were part of the charter school, alternative school debate with our elementary population. Looking at other ways to educate kids to show proficiency. Each kid still takes the state assessments and shows that their growth is on pace, and then reports that back to their own school. So our report card would not be reflective of students from Darlington or Dodgeville or Fenimore. They would each report back to their own school's report card.
I think Dodgeville has the most students. They should be in charge.
I did talk closely with Jeff Jacobs from Dodgeville. He was very appreciative that we were willing to keep this going in year one, and was willing to step up and talk further about how to partner with this, much like a Dodge Point partnership. Dodgeville is certainly probably one of the largest users of the alternative school, but they did not have an answer for year one. And They were not quite certain what they were going to do as well. So we agreed to work together in year one. And again, this may not be before the board in year two, but for the betterment of Southwest Wisconsin, it's probably the best scenario that anybody could offer because the alternative school is obviously in our backyard.
And if we didn't approve this, then where would our 3 students go?
Just be one student.
Or one?
I'm going to guess it's going to be between 1 and most likely 3. It would jeopardize, and I was going to say could, but it would jeopardize graduation for some students. This is their path. If they didn't graduate, that would be considered a dropout on our report card, and that would not look favorably upon our school district.
We don't really have a lot of choice, because if we don't do it, CISA 3 is not going to do it.
Correct.
And
Wyalusing has closed, so that is no longer an option for us.
so we're talking some pretty,
They would basically be in our general population.
And the same with all the rest of the
In
schools.
not doing anything.
Getting them to school is often a challenge. Many of these students are truant, but they come to school in an alternative setting that's really personalized, same room, same teacher, a little more flexibility in the school day without less transitions, working on a curriculum that is self-paced and directed, personalized learning environment. We've seen that this has been successful for students that traditionally wouldn't graduate from their high school. And this setting allows some to do that.
And there's a teacher in place at that salary?
Correct. There would be a teacher in place. We would offer the position with benefits as one of our employees. And that teacher would also be somewhat of a school-to-work coordinator. Many of the students come in the mornings and transition to a workplace setting in the afternoon, or vice versa. Start with work in the morning and then transition into their educational studies and try to be a blended approach.
And there's a lease that's month to month right now?
I don't know if it's month to month or annual, but I have spoken with the person that holds the lease, and they've assured me that they would continue to lease with us for the next year.
Transportation for the other schools that are on the hook for getting their kids to alternative school.
Yes, and that's part of the intergovernmental agreement, is they are in charge of transportation for the kid to the alternative school. And ironically, most of these kids that are high school age and of driving age are driving themselves from Fenimore every day, coming into the alternative school setting, and that's what it means to that student to be able to have that opportunity.
What I would recommend is Dr. Dodgeville, Gary Lindman, run the alternative school together. That way if there's a loss, the point don't incur at all.
I have approached Mr. Jacobs on that. They are not interested in jointly partnering this year.
It seems like, I mean, all these other schools know that we've been thinking of it, or we've been thinking of it, so they haven't really needed to step up to do it. And I'd be curious to know what would happen if we said no, and to see if any of them at that point.
What would happen, and I've talked to Dodgeville, I've talked to Pecatonica, both of them would figure something out internally. They would run a school within a school, and they would, because they would have to. We have by an obligation by statute to educate kids until they either graduate or their 21st birthday, and so they would have done some in-house creative thinking. They have outdoor classrooms available at Ridgeway. They have some other amenities that we don't have, and they weren't necessarily asking Mineral Point if we wanted to go over to Dodgeville. So this works for everybody. It's been working for a long time, long before I got here. And each one of us would figure it out on our own. We're kind of at the 11th hour, like I mentioned. We did not know from CISA until mid-May that they were even contemplating it, and they didn't give us any indication that they would actually fold it until June.
And my concern is they're also happy for us to do it, but none of them are interested. That and makes you a little apprehensive about exactly what's going to happen.
And I would have trouble approving this not knowing if it's a month-to-month or an annual lease. If there was a lease that guaranteed the space throughout the school year, and we're just committing to the school year, then that would make some sense. But you're saying you don't know if it's month-to-month or not, And if it is month to month and they break the lease, then the kids are coming into school.
So
I can't sign up for that.
the lease is currently held, or the rent is currently held and paid to Mike Wagner. I had a conversation with Mike to say if CISA 3 discontinues services and Mineral Point were to pick up, would we be able to carry on the rent in their absence? And his response was absolutely. It was a short, quick exchange. It wasn't an in-depth conversation, but Mike has been a good partner and friend of schools, and I don't anticipate anything other than what he said to be true.
I can imagine somebody wanting to give up 8,100 for rent.
Probably one of the better customers.
And this is in one of the rooms that's still set up as a classroom, correct?
Correct.
So it's not like we're renting it out to somebody as an apartment if we leave.
Correct. I don't know what, they would use that space for after we leave, but CISA 3, which has put investments into that room with chairs and tables, most recently upgraded furniture, a smart board and so forth, is leaving that equipment in the space for us to utilize, so there wouldn't be any upfront capital expenses. We may update or add some computer banks as the students continue to grow into the program, but beyond that, I don't see us having to do a major renovation to that space or a lot of capital costs. This would be a year-to-year.
Do you know which one of the rooms they used? Is
As
it
you
the old
come in-
lunchroom, or are they?
As you come in off of the, I want to say the west,
It's like Mr. Johnson's old room.
it'd be the first room on the right as you go up the stairs.
Did you come in the
First
old
floor.
teacher's parking lot?
Sorry, first floor.
First floor, yeah, first floor, coming in from the entrance closest to the school. That'd be the high school. We walk up the stairs, first door on the right, and they have kind of a double classroom space there. So I think there might be two classrooms kind of opened up adjoining.
In the past, behavioral issues for these kids, are they dangerous to other students? They go to the alternative school?
I don't know quite how to respond to that because I can only speak to the Mineral Point students. And even then, we may want to go in a closed session and talk
I
about
understand.
behavior and discipline.
But it's potential.
It is potential, yeah.
Will we table this until after closed session? We're gonna start talking about kids.
So we got a motion. We'll wait for Glenn to get back. Jeff, before we vote on it. Hold on. We got a motion. We got a second for Jeff's motion.
Jeff motion to.
Table this until after closed session.
I'll second.
Second by Lisa. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. School board for approval of board policy 672, first reading.
There actually, I had other language that I sent in the loop today, which wasn't much notice. So I guess what I would, and that language, I don't think is in there. But at the last meeting, we talked about exceptions to the 5,000 and being explicit. And I drafted something which isn't in there. Remember that email or something?
Yes. I didn't have a chance to read it.
Yeah, so,
Alternative school after closed session.
so I would move that we table this to the next meeting, so that the revised version of 672 will be before you in the board packet.
We have a motion by Lisa, second by Julie. Table this until next meeting.
So the 5,000 is actually still in there? It's-
Yeah, 5,000 still in there, but
It's not in the paper form?
that is the old policy.
Oh, this is the old one, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then the attachment was the revised policy that we discussed last month, but then there's more revisions to it because we had talked about adding.
I kind of would, is this where we would put something I kind of am with Glenn in that I think some of these, I think we need to give Luke some guidance on some of these teachers going to all these different things. I'm getting a little tired of having teachers out of the classroom when we're paying them to teach our kids. And I think that we ought to have something in regards to pre-approval for teachers being sent out to other districts.
Well, maybe that's something that we could do budget-wise. I mean, I don't know how that's handled in the budget. I mean, do you have a single line item?
Yeah, most often this is afforded opportunities through our Title II budget, which is again grant dollars, so it's not often our operating budget.
I mean, I think you should have the total say of it, but I just think we should give them more guidance.
I think personally that the time to do it would be in the budgeting process rather than every meeting, people come in and gosh knows what's going to happen. Because, I mean, not to analyze the board since, you know, we didn't do the discussion. Okay.
All right, so we got a motion and a second
Continue.
to table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Superintendent's report.
A couple of items for your awareness. I had mentioned that the places where we have resignations with Marin Vale, we've replaced now with Julie Whitmer, where we had Brad Brogley resign as elementary principal, replaced with Matt Renwick. There are two, and then we had Tom Barron's special education teacher's been replaced with Callie Gunlock. So those three are taken care of. There are two outstanding staffing pieces that I wanted to update the board with. The first is Heather Dampf, and upon approval of her resignation, I would move forward with a posting and hiring of that position. She is essential to the elementary building and the work that needs to happen there. There are more students in the elementary building than there are at the high school building, and more staff members and more needs. So I would recommend, after reviewing that position, to reposting and rehiring that position. The second position is around a potential resignation that I've shared with the board, and I want to move that into closed session. So I want to talk specifically about a teacher and evaluation, and maybe it's best to do that in a closed session environment. So I'll be talking about compensation, related compensations. So, we do have under closed session evaluation compensation as part of our discussion already, so I think it could move under that fairly easily.
The elementary school secretary, can we move that in closed session too? Talk about compensation.
We can talk about compensation, yes.
But if we're gonna talk about the actual need of the position, does that need to be in closed session?
That's typically an open session item.
Okay. So currently, there's two secretaries down there. Explain to the board, Luke, what each secretary is charged with.
Heather Dampf is in charge of specifically the elementary assistant to the principal and running the day-to-day operations of the building. It starts with making sure and securing substitutes at the elementary building. And then once the day starts, it moves into supporting students as they come through the office, parents, and specifically the work of Brad. Also currently, this person is a support for WIN groups, which is the What I Need or the intervention period. So they leave their station during the day and support in the classroom. When that's happening, then we have other supports in place. Because our school nurse is only half-time, and between the two buildings, they are filling in the needs as students come in, whether they be ill, need a Band-Aid, need a call home, coordinating those efforts. Toward the end of the day, it rolls into a lot of notifications about kids that are not riding the bus and who goes home with whom, and coordinating that with the transportation department. There's just a plethora of needs that go on in the elementary building. Elaine is adjacent. They take teams so that when one is there, the other can be flexible to take their breaks, to take their lunches. They support one another, but they have two very different and distinct roles. Elaine's job is specifically to support the Director of Pupil Services, coordinating all of the open enrollment and what I would call registration or enrollment needs. So every new student and/or open enrolled student goes through Elaine to begin with. Then the Director of Pupil Services position supporting Dixie in IEPs and managing and preparing different reports for special education and the related audits that go with that. Also just a second set of hands so that when Heather would be attending to somebody that is sick in the nurse's office, well, Julie's not there, then there's somebody else to answer the phone or open the door if somebody's buzzing. That's another key component, is being kind of tied to the desk so that people can visibly and actually access the building, because without somebody to buzz them in, they get frustrated because they can't access the building. So between the two, they coordinate those, answering phones consistently. A good historian for the district. Elaine has got a lot of knowledge. It just kind of helps things. She's even supporting me at the district level with a lot of the pieces around enrollment and some of the enrollment reports that I share with the board.
How are we utilizing the clerical staff in the other two buildings?
So you've got Kelly Rickers, who's at the middle school. Kelly supports the middle school population, students, teachers, much the same as Heather, but she also has the additional responsibility of the athletic director secretary, which is a pretty visible and busy piece to the day, making sure that we have students on buses for transportation, for officials to make sure they're getting to games, sport user fees, eligibility, sports meetings, so on and so forth. So that's a pretty big piece to her role and responsibility. And you've got Janet Lovinger, who is supporting the high school, much the same as the elementary and middle. You've got the student management component, Skyward reports, coursework completion. She supports Angie with. She does all of the scholarship. She does all of the graduation. I'm missing, I'm sure, a big piece of other things, but those are huge things in the spring that just really consume her, as well as the day-to-day opening the doors, answering the phones, supporting Mitch and Andy, which is a change from Judy. Judy was just predominantly working with, at that time, Ted, and Gary was kind of working in isolation, but Andy has ramped up his part with school counseling to have more needs from clerical. So Janet's actually supporting two people in conjunction to all of the needs of the high school. You have Diane, who supports at the district level and the high school level. She is the assistant to Marcia. She took over somewhat of Sherry Swingan's role and responsibility, so she oversees the activity funds, Fund 60 and Fund 21. So all of the revenues and expenditures and accruals and so forth are gone through Diane's desk. She supports in faxing and sending out POs and helps with the backup to Marcia and things like payroll and cutting checks. She is a pretty big asset to keeping Marcia moving and their business office moving, especially if Marcia were to go down, we would have a Diane. If Diane would go down, we'd have a Marcia to support. So we've got kind of a two-party system. At the elementary, a two-party system, middle school, high school, Kelly and Janet, and a two-party system with Angie and Marcia, I'm sorry, with Diane and Marcia. Then at the district office, I have Angie, who obviously is supporting me with the day-to-day operations at the district level. First and foremost is to make sure that substitutes and the substitute system is up and running and working. She is the first line of defense for filling subs throughout the district when we have a need. The second role is to support me in my daily needs. She does things like the enrollment audit, DPI audits for not only coursework completion, but we have what's called ISIS, which is a report that basically is kind of giving all of the PI reports, which are 1202, which is a staffing report, 1205, which is a budgeting report. All those things are worked with her and management, and her and Marcia send that up to DPI regularly. There's just a ton of things that get audited annually. You know, the things that are above and beyond the late nights and the evenings and so forth, but just a huge support into trying to keep the flow of the district office and all of the buildings moving forward. Angie's here, so you can speak to those other big roles and responsibilities, but I hope I hit on the big one, but very seldom is she wondering what's next. So that's a quick overview. I mean, that's just the stuff off the top of my head.
I've subbed in both the positions at the elementary school and at the middle school, and it is crazy, Bill. Like, I can't imagine doing it alone. I mean, Kelly had so much support from the team, I mean, it works for her to be alone in the middle school because she had so much support from the teachers and Vicki. But, I mean, I can't even imagine having to only have one secretary in that elementary school office because it's just, it's nonstop, kids and parents and teachers and just.
How many do we have down there?
About
Two.
360 kids, about 55 teachers and support staff.
You have 3 secretaries?
Two.
2 now, or?
2 now.
Two currently.
So you.
So if we replace Heather, you'll have 2.
Correct.
Correct.
How many do we have total for the school?
Depends on how you classify, you know, assistants and clerical positions, but you'd have at the elementary, Elaine supports the Director of Pupil Services, and
Well, I don't need to know the details, I've people I know on other school boards, I'm just gonna compare to see how many we have compared to what they have, is all.
I think
I
that,
don't need all the titles or anything, it's just.
yeah, but see, that's the problem, is some have business managers and some have bookkeepers. And so that in itself would take Diane into a different role in some school districts rather than others.
Well, I can take that into consideration, I understand that.
So getting back to your question, Elaine supports the Director of Pupil Services, Heather supports the principal, Kelly supports the principal
And athletic
/
director.
athletic director. Janet supports the principal and the school counselor. Diane supports the bookkeeper, and Angie supports the district administrator.
6.
7.
Luke, is Elaine full-time though?
No, Elaine is not full-time, she's 80%, and some 60%.
No, they're saying.
She's just not on
4, 1, and 2.
So,
Huh?
yeah, if you're looking at full-time equivalencies, Elaine is not a full-time equivalency. And I think another piece to that too is there's been some shifts in year-round employment, and I believe that only Kelly and Janet are full-time year-round employees. Everybody else is seasonal.
Seasonal.
Seasonal, thank you. Wow, need more coffee. Seasonal employees at 9 months, getting 9 hours.
So Elaine is 4 days a week.
Right now, he's at the high school.
Heather, Elaine,
Yeah.
Janet, Diane, Kelly, and Angie. That's 7. Oh, no, that's 6.
Six.
Sorry,
There's
that's
6.
Angie.
So you got 2 at preschool, and you got Kelly at the middle school, and you got,
3.
you got Angie and, okay. What's Marcia?
She's our other member, yeah, we classify her as a secretary. Could we hire a non-benefit person for that position?
It would have to be less than 50%. You'd have to offer benefits based on the Affordable Care Act. You'd have to offer benefits for anybody that's half-time.
$30 an hour, wasn't matching up to 20.
I think it's 20 or 22.5 or something like that. I'd have to look.
I mean, to Larry's point, we could maybe seek somebody, a morning person and an afternoon person. You know, 2 part-time people.
I can speak.
Maybe some parent member.
My hope that the door situation will be resolved down there, maybe as early as the beginning of the school year.
Certainly not by the beginning of the school year. There won't be a major renovation to the front door. Somebody will still need to be buzzing people in, even if there is a reallocation of how we do that space. Somebody will still have to let them in.
You know, you need to come up here about 3:15 and be in either the middle school office or the high school office and listen to the walkie-talkie with the busing. That elementary secretary is on that, making sure kids, you know, parents are calling in, don't let little Johnny ride the bus, mom's gonna pick him up. okay? I'm telling you, you need to hire a full-time person down there.
I think it would be very difficult for the building administrator to have two different secretaries, because Secretary A might have this skill set, and Secretary B has a different skill set, and I need I'm sorry, the wrong secretary's out there right now, I can't get this done, this has to wait till some other time. It needs to be one person that can do that job.
And it sort of goes in contrast with the safety issue that we've been saying we need at the elementary school, which is someone that's familiar with the faces that come in, someone that's familiar with UPS van, the parents that come in, someone that has that consistency with parents, with students, with, they're gonna, I don't know, it seems like the secretary position itself is an opportunity for a safety position without needing a safety position.
It's a great idea, Julie. Then I suggest we look for somebody with police training where they can maybe carry a gun down there.
Well, again, that would be in violation of current state law.
A police officer.
You're talking about hiring an off-duty officer, is that what you're saying? For a clerical position?
To maybe serve as both.
You can certainly post the position if that's the will of the board.
Just an idea.
Well, I think you need a full-time person there if you're going to have, a lot of intricated things that might be a little difficult for transition from one to another. One's there in the morning, one's there in the afternoon, if something's carrying over one to the other. Is the message going to get relayed or whatever? But I think, I see as something that should have been altered or whatever is when you have someone working in support staff and their benefits are as much or more than their wages, the benefits probably shouldn't have been there. It should be a different ratio or something there. That looks kind of, I don't know, doesn't look right to me anyway, but that's just my humble opinion.
Are you looking for a motion tonight on this, or what?
Nope, just giving you a staffing update.
So you'll go ahead and post that position and Luke and bring back a.
Correct. Posting and hiring, but understanding the board's reservation lately with hiring and/or staffing and salaries. If it is not the board's desire to post this position and hire this position, I would rather know that now rather than after I post and bring a candidate forward. I would hope that the board would give me by not giving me a directive here to say that yes, we fully support you moving forward with bringing us the best candidate for the best dollar that we can.
So it sounds like you want a motion.
Well, only because our history has done me in the past in this area. I shouldn't have to have a motion, but if the board is going to make it, now would be the time.
I would move to post and hire a full-time secretary position at the elementary school to replace Heather.
Why is the other lady only 80%?
Because we were able to get by without using her full-time. I think we can get the work done. We've shown that for the last 2 or 3 years.
She takes Wednesdays off, right, which
Takes
is a shortened
Wednesdays
day.
off, shortened day, and it's partly, it's hard to find part-time support, but Elaine was contemplating leaving the profession altogether, and we found a workable period of time that gives her some break as well as gets the job done. I'm not sure with her knowledge and history that we could get by with an 80% until we got that same type of knowledge, but she's very efficient in what she does because of her longevity in the district and just knowing how things work. So it would take some time to get back to that level with a new employee.
Why was she able to take Wednesday off? Because of the early release?
It made most sense that with students in the building and needing backups, that we would minimize her time that we could potentially need a backup. A shorter school day just made better sense for her to take the day on a day where students were minimized.
This is not the Heather, though.
Right, is she going to continue with that
She
next
will
year?
continue with that next
All
year.
right, so all the more reason why you would need a full-time person.
Yeah,
I'll second.
Was she full-time at one time?
she was, yeah.
We got a motion by Julie and a second by Lisa. Let's go ahead and post.
So if Do you take into consideration then, like, if you were gonna hire Lisa, for example, and she didn't need health insurance, then you could maybe give her a little bit more hourly because of not.
Typically, we haven't negotiated that way. Simply, we would offer the starting salary on our salary schedule to the candidate. That would be our first choice. If we had a good second or third choice, if they turn that down, we would move down the line.
So then do we offer automatic
Benefits, yes.
family versus single?
We don't, that is basically awarded based on their situation. So we couldn't make an offer contingent upon you only get a single. They're eligible for a family. That's part of the Affordable Care Act, is if they're over a half-time employee, we'd have to offer them benefits that we're consistent with. So
What is starting rate about?
roughly around $11.79 an hour.
Not more than we did.
Any other discussion? So this is to post and hire. So basically, a yes vote is to fill a position at the starting wage.
We would offer, but I wouldn't say that I could guarantee, because it depends on the candidates, their experience level, and what they would need to take the position. But yes, we would start by offering based on our salary schedule, and looking at their experience factor, and then going from there.
All right, roll call.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Basting,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Kinch,
Yes.
Stefas.
No. Is that it for the regular agenda?
I'm just going to mention the summer projects update. The fiber project, we met with Holker, who is the construction company that will be doing the project. They are currently pulling the Department of Transportation permits, which will allow them to basically channel, if you will, underneath the 4-lane highway or 2-lane highway, or both sides of the 2-lane highway. And then once they're there, they're pretty confident they can get up and through the rock. They've got their guy that's local to this area, that's very familiar with the rock in this area with the right trencher, and they're pretty confident they can get through the rock. And I've cautioned them, but they're saying that they're ready and they're able to do the job. So that should be starting in July once the permits are in place, and they anticipate that transition over from the charter fiber line that we're paying to transport into the building will be cut over before September 1 when school starts. So you seem to be on schedule there. And so you'll see some equipment start to be staged in mid-July into August, and we should be ready for a good project. That's all I wanted to update the board on that as well. That's it.
The Nexus program that we're in there, Luke, in, just for example, the entrance down there at the elementary school, where are we at with that?
They should be making a report at the July meeting. They were doing they were on site this week, actually looking through past invoices to take a look at our actual expenditures and where we might be able to reduce some of our costs. So they are very close to meeting with the Buildings and Grounds Operations Committee and making a full presentation in July.
All right, that concludes the open session.
I'm gonna go to closed session.
What about the stadium thing? How long is that?
Second by Jeff.